Welcome back in the name of our loving Creator. How do scientists estimate how old something is, and what are the assumptions that affect this calculation? Let's take a look. Scientific methods are used to estimate the age of certain rocks. Rock dating methods are seen by many as proof, solid proof, that the Earth is billions of years old and that life has existed for much of that time. But we saw in video 6 that the unprovable assumptions evolutionists impose on science lead them to falsely conclude the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. But if you start with assumptions such as no creator, no flood, and deep time, and then require your scientific observations, calculations, and conclusions to conform to those false assumptions, well, then you will conclude that the Earth is very old. But false assumptions lead to worthless conclusions. Ages obtained through these dating methods are based on many unprovable assumptions. If creationist assumptions were used, these methods generally produce ages that agree with Scripture, namely a young Earth and a worldwide flood. If evolution assumptions are used, these methods generally produce ages that do not agree with Scripture. Assumptions can determine outcome. There are different methods to estimate the age of an object. Scientists choose which method to use based on the object they're trying to date and how old they think that object may be. One method is carbon dating. Most people have heard of carbon dating but don't really understand it. Carbon dating is not used to date rocks. It is used to estimate the age of things that at one time were living, such as bones, shells, and wood. Evolutionists use carbon dating for ages they expect to be between 100 and 50,000 years old. The process is as follows. Living plants, animals, and people have both radioactive and normal carbon in their bodies. The ratio of relative amounts of radioactive to normal carbon in their bodies is the same as it was in the air while they were still living. Once they die, the amount of radioactive carbon slowly reduces to zero. Carbon dating compares the ratio of radioactive carbon, 14C, to regular carbon, 12C, in the item which they are trying to date. A cautionary note: carbon dating depends upon many unprovable assumptions. Radioactive carbon, 14C, is constantly produced in the atmosphere, and evolutionists assume that the atmospheric ratio of radioactive carbon, 14C, to regular carbon, 12C, has stayed the same for 50,000 years. Well, this is unprovable, and it may be wrong. Among the reasons why this assumption may be false, it could be that God simply created the Earth with no radioactive carbon, carbon 14C. Then, for much of the Earth's history, the amount of radioactive carbon, 14C, in the atmosphere would be much lower than today, slowly growing towards today's larger level and resulting in calculated ages much older than true ages. A creationist can accept the accuracy of carbon dating for the past few thousand years while knowing that older items are dated inaccurately, with calculated ages far exceeding their actual age. Estimated ages for certain types of rocks are obtained using other dating methods such as radioactive potassium-40, which decays or breaks apart into decay products. The amount of radioactive material and its decay products are measured in the rock to be dated. It is assumed that the decay products measured resulted from decay of the radioactive material in that rock. The length of time it took to decay provides then an estimated age of the rock. What could go wrong with that? Plenty. Let's consider two of the unprovable assumptions evolutionists use for dating rocks. First of all, starting conditions. Evolutionists need to know how much of the decay product was in the rock when the rock cooled from hot liquid magma into solid rock. This cannot be measured since no one was there in the past to measure it. So evolutionists assume the starting amount was 0. But this is a risky assumption since many rocks forming today are found to have these decay products. Such rocks, which are known to be only a few years old, give dating methods ages of millions and billions of years. And then the second assumption, no contamination. Evolutionists assume that none of the radioactive material or its decay products leaked into or out of the rock since it was formed. To evolutionists, this means no leaking in or out of the rock during a period of up to several billion years. A risky assumption since we have found such leaking to occur in the present. Evolutionists admit that their assumptions are unprovable and commonly false. A dating lab writes, there is not a reliable way to determine if the assumptions are valid. Argon loss and excess argon are two common problems that may cause erroneous ages to be determined. Dating methods are useful tools both for evolutionists and for creationists. We can estimate actual ages of up to several thousand years for things that were once living, like wood, bone, shells, peat, etc. And we can estimate relative ages of some kinds of rocks, learning which rock may be older than another. But evolutionists go beyond this, using many unprovable assumptions, including deep time, that's millions of years, and no worldwide flood. These assumptions lead to calculated carbon dating ages of up to 50,000 years for organic matter. And these assumptions lead to calculated rock ages of millions and even billions of years instead of just relative ages. And that is what the evolutionists need. They require deep time, millions and billions of years, to make the theory of evolution more reasonable in their own eyes. Evolutionists calculate ages of billions of years by assuming that the Earth is billions of years old, by assuming that there was no worldwide flood, and then imposing those assumptions on their calculations. But God reveals in the Scripture that the Earth is only thousands of years old, and that there really was a worldwide flood. So we can be certain that the assumptions evolutionists use are false. And since evolutionists have based their dating calculations on false assumptions, the dates they calculate are worthless. That's our lesson. Until the next time, God's blessings.